Cool. So yeah, we've still got a few attendees trickling through, but I think we might as well make a start. So welcome everyone. Thank you very much for joining our webinar about how technology is going to be shaping the next generation of construction workers and the industry in general. My name is Angus McIntyre from Payapps, and I'm delighted to be joined today by Matt Love and Melissa Chan. So Matt is the co-founder of Connector, a cutting-edge job platform, and he brings over 10 years experience in construction recruitment, both here in Melbourne and in the Middle East. And essentially his experiences in that 10-year career allowed him to become the co-founder of Connector, a cutting-edge job platform specifically tailored to meet the complex needs of the construction industry and the current job climate. So welcome to Matt. And we are also joined by Melissa Chan, who is a lecturer in built environment at Victoria University. So Melissa is a chartered building professional with the Australia Institute of Building, and as I say, a lecturer in built environment at Victoria University, specialises in construction procurement, cost planning, contract administration, and risk and safety management. And amongst Melissa's many research interests include sustainable infrastructure, green procurement, digital construction, and construction safety. So I think hopefully those two introductions give you guys a flavour that we've got two excellent panelists, and we're really looking forward to hearing their thoughts over the next half an hour to 40 minutes. So we've got a few questions that we're going to be running through with our two panelists, but if any attendees do have any questions, we'll be holding a Q&A at the end of the session. But if you do have any questions that you want to answer as we go through, then please don't hesitate just to ask a question in the chat or in the Q&A section of the webinar as we go. So if we sort of start off, I guess, I think the first question for Matt. Some of the recent webinars that we've been running with customers such as Capital Group and ADCO, these are businesses that have really embraced the digital first mindset in construction. And we do find that it's setting them apart from other companies and helping them grow their businesses faster. So Matt, I mean, as a recruiter specifically for construction with your industry experience, what are some of the impacts that you've seen that you can put down to the role of technology in the industry?
I think, when candidates are looking for a new job, they always tend to think about, obviously the culture of that company. And I think technology, a lot of the time, is a reflection, or the willingness to adopt new technologies and reflection of culture. I guess it just shows that, forward-thinking mindset, always looking to improve and stay ahead of the curve. It's not just for graduates, that sort of who are coming straight out of university, who are obviously, grown up with technology their whole life, but that sort of 3-4 year experienced employee as well, who are, they're really hot sort of candidates. 3-4 years with a builder and sort of coming into that, they really know what they're doing. Then if they're looking to move, they're always looking. They want to see the new technology that these companies have adopted. There's obviously Hammertech, Estimate One, Payapps, all those sort of companies have created, there's been mass adoption across the industry. And I think that when, candidates are looking for jobs and new roles, that they always, consider the technology that business is, has on offer, always using. It streamlines their processes. It obviously makes their job easier. And as I said, it's just a reflection of the company culture.
Yeah, so it's not necessarily even just related to the use of technology for those companies' processes, but more what it says about the company itself, that they're willing to adopt those technologies.
I think so, and there's a little bit of that, not being left behind. Obviously, I'm sure we're going to touch on this a bit later, but we've seen with COVID that has obviously accelerated the adoption of many different technologies. Not just Zoom, but many things, and those conversations now are happening. Whereas, that they were obviously already happening, but I think COVID has brought that along a lot quicker. I think that when good candidates, particularly who are looking for career moves, who are looking for long-term, career opportunities, that they want to go to companies who are forward thinking, who are, I said, adopting all these new technologies. We read about, obviously, Payapps Hammer Tech and you guys every day pretty much now. You don't go into many businesses, without signing in on just on a Hammer Tech tablet. So, it's changed the industry completely, and businesses who don't adopt, unfortunately, will be left behind, and they won't be able to attract the same level of talent.
Okay, yeah, that's really interesting. And Melissa, I mean, I guess sort of pivoting to your role as a lecturer in contract management. I mean, how important is it for your students to have access to tools like Payapps, like that, as Matt has mentioned, sort of the likes of Hammer Tech? I guess how important is it for those students to have access to those tools, and how does that help to set them up for, I guess, to be ready to go when they enter the world of construction?
Yeah. Morning, everyone, and thanks for having me, Angus and Matt. I think my perspective from the academic point of view is slightly going to be a bit different, but I look at it especially like we have Payapps coming into one of the units that our students do at Victoria University, construction management, contract management. It's really important. I look at it as embracing that technology as a step beyond digitalization, and that's what we're trying to emphasize to our students. So as we know, construction firms, are continually, trying to refine processes and practices to integrate new techniques. The advanced ones would be like technologies such as drones, robots, and now we have artificial intelligence, GPS tracking, with some of our students here who actually are doing building surveying. So I think those integrating technologies into the studies for our students is a good start for them to sort of look into the process, which might even date back to the construction pyramids, where we start off with surveying, design, planning, management, and then we come together as producing some, large scale structure. So in this instance, we look at embracing, technologies for our students, even having, I think, Angus demonstrating Payapps to my students in the last, 6 months was really important. Through the studies for the student, we get to embrace those principles for the construction and building sector. To do better, we need transparency. In Payapps, I think specifically, we need that knowledge sharing, that risk sharing in contracts, so that document management system. So we're trying to prepare our students to be familiarized with that and to be graduate ready. So in that instance, habits are very tough to change, especially when we talk about managing contracts. In my old days, there used to be like bulk of tenders, and we have all the printouts and that is really, not that environmentally free. But looking at it now for our students, I think contracts, Payapps, will be seen as a tool that allow fair sharing of risks for both sides to succeed, owner and non-owner participants. In terms of to put it probably more succinctly, I think for our students, it's very important to set them, digitally, ready for the world of construction. I think it's very important for our new graduates to move away from business as usual. As well as organization to have a clear change story, to sort of push the top management to communicate these changes, which means that they wouldn't just have to invest in change management, but we want to sort of embrace and go, basically work hand in hand with the waves of technology and deployment, and that's what we're hoping our students will achieve at the end of the day.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I think making in almost creating these habits early, so that people are ready to embrace technology when they enter work. It's not something they have to change after starting work, if that makes sense. So I think, Matt, I'd be really keen to hear from you. Obviously, yeah, great to get the insight from Melissa about the way she approaches teaching her students. But I guess flipping it to the other side with your discussions with employers in the construction industry, are you seeing increasingly that your clients expect recruits, candidates to be coming in to be proficient in technology? And I think when we say proficient in technology as well, I think we can start saying proficient in much more industry-specific technology. I think gone are the days when you'd be required to be proficient in Excel and Word, and that was pretty much all employers were looking for. How are you seeing it on that side of things?
Yeah, I think it's just a lot of it, particularly on the site front. If you look at site managers and foremen, they would barely have used a computer 10 years ago. now it's, a real requirement. They understand how to use different softwares, taking photos on their phone, logging, registers and things. Obviously, all the COVID has, again, fast tracked that. I think it's a bit of a mix. I wouldn't say, everybody had certain experience. It obviously helps, but, it's always down to attitude, ability to work as a team, communication. They're really key attributes for any employee, for any construction company, obviously, and, experience and ability. But certainly on the graduate front, being exposed to these different technologies is obviously very helpful. But I think it's also, being able to, you're coachable and teachable and willing to really just throw yourself into anything, as opposed to saying, this is what we've done for 20 years. This is how it's done. No way am I taking a photo of this and logging it on something in the cloud. It's about being open to that change and that development. And I think that that's what we're hearing from a lot of our clients, is that they don't necessarily need to have that specific experience, but they just have to want to learn. And I know that's probably one of a lot of challenges for builders at the moment is, particularly with, more experienced employees, is that sort of getting them to adopt that change. Because obviously, that initially they always see that as, that's creating work and something else they have to learn. And, we've always done it this way and there's never been any problems. But I think it's just about making, everything more efficient. And it's just education, for a lot of, the education has to be right and filtered down in the right way. And then, I think hopefully we can get a bit more adoption. As I was starting to see it now, if we look at my business, for example, over the last, 3 or 4 months, 6 months, the sort of, the conversation has certainly changed. Everybody's looking for ways to do things more efficiently. Whether that be recruitment, safety, claims, anything. It's about creating more efficient ways and using technology to do that. I sort of got off the topic a little bit there, but I think it's
no. I think it's very interesting to look at it as a broad conversation.
It's obvious, the willingness to embrace technology definitely has to be there, but it also is your communication, teamwork, work ethic. They're also, and as an ability to do the job. They're still crucial, obviously.
No, I think like you say, it's really interesting to look at it. Obviously technology has to be something that people are open to adopt, but I think it's also just what it says about you as a kind of a general candidate, if you really are open-minded and very eager to learn about that side of things. I think it's a really interesting way of looking at it. I guess so. A similar question I had for both of you. We might as well start with you, Matt, on this one as well. But we've talked about what the expectations of employees and new candidates, but how can construction firms, obviously, firms are always looking to make themselves attractive to the best possible talent out there. So I guess if Matt, if you were giving advice on your clients, on the employer side of things, what would you sort of recommend to them to make sure that they would be able to remain employers of choice and be the ones that, not only graduates, but, as you say, more sort of mature employees, candidates, how, basically being as attractive as possible for as places that people really want to go and work?
Yeah, it's an interesting one in this market, that's for sure, because obviously the employment market has definitely changed. Obviously, we've had since February, March time, it's been a bit of a roller coaster, but sort of there are really good signs that it's picking up. Firstly, I think that it's through just being the willingness to obviously adopt technology, to look forward, to not just live in your current workload and project. Obviously, everybody wants to get somewhere faster. A CA wants to be a P. He might leave a company because he wants to be a PM in 2 years, and not a PM in 10 years. So I think it's about having that development, being able to offer people a real, defined career pathway. And then you know, it is about the sort of work, obviously, that you deliver as well, and the reputation you have for delivering that work. And then on the graduate front, I read something, I think it was earlier in the year, about, you know, the sort of new graduates are always looking, you know, for building. It's all about, you know, sustainability and being environmentally conscious. That's one of the main things that they think about. It's not just about, you know, building a 100-story skyscraper in the city. They're starting to think about their legacy and sort of their, I guess, the impact that they're creating on the environment. Obviously, that's the sort of next generation. I think that's, you know, if you're looking at that graduate market, it's a real focus. It's a real focus. Graduates, when they're picking their companies, being, you know, environmentally, you know, focused and sustainable, which obviously comes back to the technology and not having, you know, big wads of paper and you know, the printer working overtime all day. You know, it's about, you know, using Slack and, you know, different sort of technologies to communicate, as opposed to, you know, thousands of emails and, you know, sitting in meetings all day with big contracts and that sort of thing.
Yeah, no, I think that's really interesting. I think that leads us really nicely. I'd be keen to get your perspective, Melissa. I know that, you know, green energy and sustainability are two of your sort of big passions as well when it comes to construction. So is that something that you're seeing, you know, as Matt said, you know, your students, I guess their priorities might be very different from the people that were entering the job market even 5 years ago, let alone sort of 10 or 20 years ago.
Yep, absolutely. I am absolutely with what Matt has just mentioned earlier. I think it's very, very important, and probably one of the key words is probably having our employers to be agile, to remain, employers of choice, and for graduates to be headhunting. I think we need employers to think about making technology a priority. Because I think millennials, or even those younger that have grown up with technology, I'm probably not one of them. For them, using, you know, smartphones, tablets is second nature. So those digital tools are really, really important. And as a predominantly blue-collar industry, construction and building sector, we have been known as, you know, one of the, you know, slow ones to adapt to the digital age. But progress has been made. So I think it's very important that employers have to try to show this, to draw in young talents. So that's one of the first thing that I think employers need to be a bit more agile and adaptive on you know, like making technology a priority, investing in technology. So that's the other one there. I think if you are set up in the business, it's not just to attract young workers, but, you know, right equipment, software can make the job, you know, to be done really well. Communication, which would be far more effective. Planning projects, which will be more accurate, and even building more affordably. So I think those are the key things that employers need to sort of incorporate into the way they work, and get our graduates to be keen on you know, looking for jobs in this sector. The other thing that I am thinking about is, you know, having the employer to highlight the demand for technological skills. So to remain, again, the choice, the employer of the choice. I think with the industry gradually becoming more technologically advanced, it is very important that we offer those with technological skills, and students are very keen on looking at skills that would provide them real career options. So those who love coding, working with computers, even our building surveyors, you know, like building inspectors now, you know, like the ability to sort of look into how to detect defects virtually. So looking into finding patterns in data. So those are the things that we want to make sure that employers start being a bit more adaptive, and look into how we can make technology a bit more at the forefront. So in that instance, I think there should be an emphasis. If I'm a student, I will look for employers of choice. If there is an emphasis that there's a collaborative relationship with technology that will actually challenge not just youth but potential workers to envision the possibilities, because this is the way forward. So I think these are one of the few things that our graduates would be keeping an eye on.
Yeah, for sure. And I guess, Melissa, in your role, obviously, it's very important that you work with employers in the construction industry to make sure that your courses contain, relevant, up-to-date information for your students, that's going to be useful to them when they do enter the job market. So how do you work with construction firms, work with employers in the industry to make sure that you've got that content ready to go, and you're giving your students the information and the tools they need?
Yep, that's been a big challenge. I mean, if I have to be honest, as we know, I mean, BIM, building information modeling, it hasn't really been incorporated fully in Australia. So there has been a constant sort of a debate and trying to encourage the openness of adopting BIM, and from our side of academics, accreditation is really important to make sure that our courses are up to date. So one of the first few things that in fact we have been working with organizations like Transurban, Built, to sort of make sure our courses are up to date and remains relevant in the industry, progressively with keeping in tap with the pulse of the market. So that's very, very important. So one of the key things that we constantly look at is systematic development of BIM-based construction engineering education curriculum. So this curriculum, we try to look into a few things that we can develop the basic framework, because at the moment we do not have an integrated BIM construction education framework in Australia, not just in Victoria University, but tertiary education in Australia. And this is one of the key things that we're trying to offer in our postgraduate unit. We haven't actually launched that yet, but we're looking into it. So I think this is very important from the forefront of academics. I think we are trying to build this together with the organizations, developing a basic framework that would include the goals, the objectives of how we can practice BIM. So in terms of how we can practice and implement BIM into workforce. So in that instance, we have to set learning topics in final year subjects like advanced construction, to make sure that students have the opportunity to use BIM softwares in our classrooms. So in that instance, we are developing curricula and basically lectures where students actually would look into the results and overall framework of BIM-based construction curriculum.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that was going to be sort of the next thing I was really interested to hear from you about is how students, what their feedback is about the tech portion of your courses. Because I think, like you say, it's a very difficult thing because, I think as we've discussed already, it's all very well and good, thinking that you sort of understand the technology and how to use it. But I guess until you enter the world of work and you have to put it into practical usage, you might not really you might have confidence and then find that you actually don't know quite as much as you think you do. So I guess you've touched on it there, putting it into a bit of real life context on your courses, but how do your students respond to the tech portions of your courses?
I think most of the students really love it. And in fact, I think one of the key feedbacks that we have gauged from students' perspective is they wanted more of that. Not just the preparedness to the industry, but I think it's very important that I think back to the question I think earlier, I think I sort of jumped a little bit earlier, but looking at how not just the attraction of trying to retain employees, but how do we engage them and keep them to be interested and be productive when they join the workforce. So I think it's very important that we have this incorporation of BIM into the curriculum as part of embracing digitalization in construction, because it appeals to millennial values. I mean, I think it's one of the biggest. I mean, millennials are one of the biggest participants in the workforce, but their values is different from how my generation used to be. I mean, to keep them in construction, I think it's very important that we have these values and we provide our graduates with a place that they'll love working at. So I think this is back to what we were saying, the balanced lifestyle. I mean, digitalization provides that. I mean, we were having a informal chat earlier about working from home, that sort of balanced lifestyle that graduates and potential workforce in future, where there's a work environment which would respect personal lives and need for downtime. So in that instance, I think it will help employees and employers to work productively hand in hand together.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I think you've kind of touched on there, Matt. If we can go back to you, I think it's the elephant in the virtual room slightly, but I think we do have to discuss it. Is just the impact of COVID, and how it's. We don't want to dwell on it, but I think we've got to acknowledge that it has fundamentally transformed the way a lot of businesses work. So, in your eyes, I mean, how has it changed construction, the pandemic that we're experiencing?
Yeah, I think as I sort of said earlier, it hasn't, that change to technology was already happening with a number of companies. Obviously, COVID has accelerated that. And I think that, companies that were already on that path, they've been able to adapt quicker. Their staff have been able to adapt quicker because the mindset in that business was already changing. Obviously, some businesses who hadn't even thought about adopting new technology, had to implement different things overnight very quickly. And obviously, if the staff aren't prepared or aren't ready for that, then it does take a lot longer. And the change, obviously either doesn't happen or doesn't happen as quickly. I think we'll find that if you look at the businesses who are, who've been successful over the last sort of 6 to 9 months, it's businesses who have been, who are already talking about adopting technology or had adopted technology. And they've hired staff based on their willingness to adopt technology. I think that's been a real, that's really shown through, I think, in the last 6 months, that businesses who were forward thinking, again, back to that sort of ahead of the curve, and not just thinking in their current project, but thinking 5, 10, 20 years ahead, and what the industry looks like. I think COVID has just brought everything forward probably a couple of years, and meant that everybody's had to scale their technology quicker. I just think that businesses who are already on that curve have such a huge advantage, not just winning work, but attracting staff. If you're, at the start of COVID, if you're working for a builder that's never adopted any technology, and you've got, and then all of a sudden go, oh, you need to learn this now, let's go.
Yeah.
It'd be really overwhelming. And I'll go back. We sort of haven't touched on this, but treating your staff well, during COVID is so important. I think that it's very easy to say that you're lucky to have a job, but you need to keep engaging your staff over COVID, because the market is picking up. It is becoming much more positive. We're hearing every day that new projects, whether, obviously in the institutional space and government space has really got a lot busier. And if you haven't engaged with your staff and haven't ensured that your staff are happy over COVID and comfortable with everything, then as soon as it picks up, they'll leave. And there is going to be work out there. It's, and we all know the costs of, hiring staff, retaining staff. It's an enormous cost to businesses. And I think that, we've spoken to a lot of clients who a real big focus for them over COVID has been, making sure that they engage with their staff, making sure the staff know what's happening. The communication's been strong. It's, even if you are having to stand down staff or take pay cuts, it's about communicating that in the right way. I don't think a sort of a bulk email saying everyone's getting 20% pay cuts is that well received. Preparing people for that, and being, and for the directors and for the construction managers of these companies to be visible during that time as well is really important. And I think that because there has been a lot of change, so back to the technology, all the sort of new technologies, new processes, obviously, COVID registered, the COVID safe plans and everything like that. That's a big change, and particularly for site managers, foremen. The requirement right now the demand, for safety managers, like or OH&S coordinators, it must be bigger than sort of I've ever seen. Just because the site managers, particularly, just they can't manage everything on their own with all the new regulations and procedures and the plans that they have to put in place. So there's been I'm going to go off a little bit of topic again, but it's
all very, very interesting. Yeah.
But it's just about COVID has just meant that companies that were already looking after their staff, managing their staff, training their staff, they're at such a huge advantage, and those companies really won't see the benefit probably till 12 months down the track. And obviously things start when they're just so far ahead of everyone else, and people are sitting there banging down the door, I guess, wanting to do this, because not only are they busy, obviously, and they've won good work, but they're also, the way they're perceived and the way they're seen in the market. The construction industry in Melbourne is obviously employs a huge amount of people, but everybody talks and gossips, and everything that's happening. So it's really important for those businesses to treat their staff well, because when everyone starts going out for a beer again, the first thing that all the site managers get, XYZ made me do this and do that, and so I think COVID has just accelerated businesses or need for technology, which is great. It improves efficiency. It improves the industry. It makes things better for everyone. I think because the industry's been around for a long time, they've been slow to, we've obviously, notoriously been slow to adopt, but COVID's, changed that. And I think that it's exciting. There's a lot of good opportunities to.
Yeah, exactly. And if I may add on to that, I think Matt was spot on, and COVID has presented us with the opportunity where there's a combination of more detailed, multi-dimensional information, like system, digital approaches it means that we are thinking about building things differently, not just the design construction processes advancing rapidly, but I think it also will mean that we have alternative means to improve productivity, safety, functional design of buildings, setting the technology to enable much better access, instead of walking to site. Basically we can actually check progress virtually on different platforms. So I think digital model, basically I think the way we work in construction now will offer site managers, like Matt was saying, access to very powerful information capabilities, which I think Payapps, provide that flexibility as well. So in short, I do think that, agreeing with what Matt has said, even, with COVID presenting this opportunity, it's great that we can look into workplace effectiveness and productivity. I think digitalization has enabled us to look into that, manage environmental aspects, maintenance practices, regulatory compliance, operating costs, as well as ongoing, building change processes, which means that, this are all being enabled by, the evolving information technology.
Yeah, no, I think that's really interesting. I think just to say, by the way, to our attendees, that if you do want to start asking questions, please feel free to through the Q&A function at the bottom of your screens. But I guess this is one question that I had for you guys. If we look at COVID, I think one thing that we've been seeing is that obviously, asking people to invest in new technology might seem kind of counterintuitive when we're operating in a pandemic, and everyone's worried about, the bottom line and worried about cash flow. But it sounds from what you've both said, Matt, maybe if we can go to you first, that in a way this is the time to invest in that sort of thing, because you're going to need it. As you said, you would have needed it before COVID, but certainly with the year that we've had, it seems like sort of now's the time to push on and make a change that you would have needed to make anyway, effectively.
Yeah, I think it has accelerated everybody's thinking. Obviously, we had a lot of downtime as well over that sort of 6-8 weeks when construction went down to 25%. And a lot of businesses during that time, instead of standing down staff or anything like that, they had their staff at home doing training, looking into new technologies, getting them prepared for going back to work. Which is obviously great if you can afford it. But there's also, the businesses who are attractive to the best candidates in the market are ones that are looking 5-10 years ahead. If you're thinking about, obviously we're all trying to survive COVID, everybody. But certainly there's, you need to focus on survival, but then also thinking about what your business is going to look like after COVID. COVID's obviously going to be an issue for a while. you need to start thinking about what it is 5-10 years ahead. I know that the cost right now might seem, unnecessary, but it's going to save you, hundreds of thousands of, millions of dollars over the journey, and ensure that your business stays relevant. The business is nothing without staff, essentially. And to attract the best staff, you need to be thinking, 2, 3, 4, 5 years ahead. Because that's, someone sits in an interview and they ask a question to the interviewer. It is, what does my role, they ask, what does my role look like in 2, 3, 4 years? If you're just saying, oh, well, you're going to be a CA on this project, and then I guess we've got to see if we win some work. It's like, well, I'm not that keen to really leave my stable job. So I think it's really about, saying, we've invested in this technology. We're looking to roll, Payapps or Hammertech out across all of our sites. We really, you're really interested in technology. We'd love you to champion that, or to sort of, grab that for us. I think that, that COVID has just meant the businesses, the really strong businesses are thinking about the future. They're obviously, managing COVID, and getting through COVID, but right now they're thinking about the future. They're thinking about what their business looks like in 5 years, what technology they've got, what their workforce looks like, what their, what their business looks like, because everything has to change. It has changed. The industry's had to change from March to now. The change has been, insane. It's been rapid, and the way we record things, the way that sites operate now is just completely different. And it just shows that if people are pushed, they can make that change. But it's about, obviously COVID forced that change to happen, and everybody did it because they had to. But hopefully they realise the efficiencies that they've created and how much better things have got because they've pushed that change out. And there would have been some obviously pushback and pains and everything like that, but it's changed everything for the better. Obviously it's been a horrible. It's been a horrible sort of period, but looking back, hopefully we look back and go, this was a great opportunity for businesses to really, adopt new technology, change the way they do things, really see what staff as well, are prepared to go on the journey with you, and who wants to change with you and who wants to grow with you. Not, guys sitting there going, oh, nah, we're not doing that. We've done that before, and that's that's one of the few benefits that COVID has provided is, business has been able to see who wants to go, who wants to go on the journey with them, who's prepared to make sacrifices, who's prepared to help, push out change. It's, as I said, I personally, I think it's exciting. It's exciting for us. The conversations that we've had with companies and businesses over the last 3 months or so, as sort of work picks up, everybody's thinking about how they can make things more efficient, how they can change things. We don't always need to do things the same way anymore. We've done things, just because we've done things for 10 years this way, we changed that overnight. Essentially we were told on a Sunday that, construction was going down to 25%, this, and this, and this. And by Wednesday, everyone had made it happen.
Yeah. That's agile change for you. Yeah, that's a quick turnaround. I guess that. Sorry, carry on.
I was just to say it can be done if we're pushed.
Yeah, I think that's we'll sort of begin to wrap up. I guess that was the sort of we've had a question come through of the leads in very nicely from what you've just been saying, Matt. But if I could just get a sort of summary from both of you about the way you see things developing over the next. That's sort of 2 to 5 years, obviously, with hopefully the recovery from the pandemic. But yeah, I think it'd be great to gauge, maybe if we start with you, Melissa, just if you're optimistic on your outlook about the industry over the next, in the immediate future, and sort of any further changes, I guess, you see shaping how the industry operates over the next few years.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, thanks so much, Angus. I think absolutely. I've mentioned earlier, I think COVID has obviously changed the way we work, and and it will continue going on this way. And I think that what we need to do is embrace on changes and prepare our graduates so that they can actually move with, and do well with the technology. I think that's the really important thing, that we need to start embracing technology and preparing our graduates to do that. I guess from my perspective, and picking up what Matt was saying, that this is obviously, a very positive thing for not just the industry, but, for the whole the overall look of the workforce. So in terms of productivity, efficiency in working, safety perspective, I look at digitalization as a good start of how we are going to be shaping things differently from now on, and how we can control and manage our processes in a better way. So obviously, I mean, all this means a lot of streamlining processes in transition at the moment, but I look at it as a very positive start. But the key thing is, I think we do need employers and employees, both sides to work together. I think having that investment that Matt has mentioned up front, to be providing investment and in terms of technology preparedness is really important. But it's also we need to make sure that there's regular training and development for the workers, because I mean students, from what I've gathered, students are very keen to learn and do more. So stagnation is the last thing that they really want in their work. Even myself, I think I would desire a career that would build my knowledge, skills, and experience. And I think in moving along with embracing technology, we need to make sure that employers will provide young workers, or existing workers with training opportunities. I think that is what will retain, and to sort of make sure that the people in the industry is well equipped to do their job. So smaller companies, even with limited resources, can partner with unions or other associations, I think, and sort of incorporate and establish a mentorship program within their own organization. So I think that would be small steps that we can incorporate when we're employing new graduates for the industry.
Nice. Yeah, that's really interesting. And just before we go to Matt on a sort of similar question, just worth mentioning, guys, that will be as we wrap up, we'll just be putting a poll up at the beginning of your screen for you guys. It'd be great if while we're wrapping up, you could just give us your feedback on how the session's gone. So you can find that at the bottom of your screen. So Matt, maybe if we kind of go to you for the final words, as it were, on this webinar, I guess. Yeah, do you have an optimistic outlook for the way things are going over the next few years? Well, obviously specifically in the construction industry.
Obviously it's been a bit of a roller coaster for us, because we see, at the start of COVID, we saw the mass redundancies. We got the calls about people who had their pays cut by 30-40% who'd been stood down on JobKeeper. But I guess what we've noticed over the last 2 months, 3 months, is those have pretty much stopped. Obviously businesses are working with their staff to get their salaries back up to where they were. Also, the redundancies haven't been there at the same level. Even particularly in I thought personally that the government the government stimulus would dig us out, which obviously it's going to. You look at the announcements over the weekend with the sort of public sector housing, and obviously the new infectious diseases hospitals, and obviously schools, defence, prisons. Those projects are going to stimulate the construction industry. Obviously they only they're probably in that tier 2, tier 3 type builder space, which is great. But what we've seen, even the builders who are really exposed to that private residential stuff, I thought that would take a lot longer to come back. It's still not back. Don't get me wrong, it's still not back to where it was. But we're having but builders, developers are starting to have those conversations again. About getting things back online, and projects that were shelved in March or February or later, they're starting to come back. The tender market is obviously going to be hot. It's going to be price driven. If you're a developer right now, you're going to get a good price, I would have thought. So even that sort of smaller, $5 million to $30 million residential space, I still think there's a bit of confidence there. look, the big stuff, you know, I don't think there's going to be a heap of $200 million towers in the CBD, you know, anytime soon.
Yeah.
So the bigger stuff is going to slow down, and it's going to be a real focus on institutional work, you know, health, as I said, health, education, prisons, defence, those type of projects are going to be at the forefront. So, you know, which is obviously offers people a variety of projects to work on. But, you know, obviously builders that are overexposed or have been exposed to residential previously, it does take it's going to take a little bit longer to bounce back. But we are hearing much more positive, and I'm positive. You know, I'm not getting the same. My phone isn't ringing the same way as what it was, which is good. You know, there are calls about, you know, looking for, you know, that we're looking for people and looking to change and looking to do different things, as opposed to, oh, we're about to lay 20 people off. Can you help them? So that you know, it's good. I think that the positivity is there. Obviously, the challenge is getting these projects that have been announced to market, you know, quickly, and, you know, getting them awarded quickly and getting them, you know, obviously coming out of the ground quickly. That's, you know, that is the challenge. You know, there's obviously a lot of work coming up, but it's about when that starts, and obviously the ability of builders or companies to hold on to their staff until those projects do start, because you know, there is probably going to be a little bit of a lag, no doubt.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I think that's a really nice optimistic note to end it on. I think, you know, like we've really touched on, I think that's been a really interesting discussion about just, you know, how technology is going to completely shape the next you know 5 to 10 years in the construction industry. So yeah, I hope everyone who's attended has found that session helpful. Just wanted to say a huge thank you to Matt and to Melissa for giving up their time and I think contributing to a really interesting discussion. So thank you both of you, and thanks to everyone who attended as well.
Cheers. Thanks, mate.
Thanks so much.
Yeah, bye.
See ya.